Actually, I had my heart set on something cherry flavored, if you know what I mean. Welcome to Hey Guys Podcast. I'm Rob, that's Liam, and this week we watched The Faculty. The answer to the question, what if Invasion of the Body Snatchers was just a teen drama? We follow a ragtag group of teenagers from all different cliques to stop an alien invasion starting in a high school in Ohio. Because why go full Independence Day when you can just go in through the back door? Our group consists of Delilah, the head cheerleader slash editor of the school newspaper, Stokely, the outcast who knows all about the body snatchers, Mary Beth, the new girl with the southern accent, Stan, the jock and team captain of the football team, Casey, the nerd, who I'm surprised still has any testicles after that light bullying he receives, and Zeke, our local chemist, bad boy, smuggler, and personal barber. Can this group survive and figure out that it's obviously Mary Beth who's the alien? Or will they all get taken over quickly and stupidly before they accidentally manage to save the world? Now, I say idiotic because, well, let's look at Stan. He wants to know if they have saved the world after Zeke kills the principal with absolutely no remorse or hesitation. So, how does Stan do this? Well, he goes out into the rain to see if the football team, who are just standing in the rain, looking up, are still human. And yes, Stan already learned at this point that they love water. Now, I know Stan's no rocket scientist or anything, but my God, mate, buy a clue. We will talk about this and many more, I'm sure. But the first thing we must address is Josh Hartnett cutting his own hair for the role, and Robert Rodriguez just saying, "Yeah, mate, looks great on film." Absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. Now, Liam, is there anything wrong with Hartnett's absurd Barnett?
Well, yeah, it's a terrible haircut. And the weird thing is, it's never been seen before or since. This isn't one of those like, oh, you go back and like, oh, well, it's 1998. There are a lot of elements of that where you go back and it looks like 1998. Although, for the most part, this film is a very handsome looking film, which is down largely to Robert Rodriguez and his cinematographer. Because if you go back and say, I recently watched Final Destination, the first movie. They're all on Netflix at the moment.
Yeah.
The first film has aged quite a bit. And a big part of that as well is the fashion. Whereas in this film, the fashion has aged, but in case you hadn't noticed, Tommy Hilfiger has a lot to do with this movie. And even though it's implemented relatively subtly, you don't get like the Tommy badge and everything. It means that everyone's actually dressed pretty well in that kind of 1998 way. But of course, that 1998 aesthetic has come back around. All with the exception of Zeke's fucking haircut, which hasn't existed before or since. It was just Josh Hartnett having a mental breakdown, cutting his own hair. I don't even know quite what he did because it's like 90% of a normal haircut. You know, like the classic would be the mullet, where you're like, it's 50% a normal haircut and 50% a crazy haircut. This is 90% of a normal haircut and 10% of a crazy haircut. But because it's almost quite subtle, it brings more attention to it. You know, like in the French way, that somehow you look more naked if you're only naked from the waist down. It's that kind of vibe. And I, for one, and this goes right back to 98 and saying now, I can't stop looking at his fucking hair. Like he's got like little wings on the side.
It's around the ears.
I don't even know how to explain it.
You know what it looks like to me? It looks like he had one of those Flowbees, the thing where you can connect to the vacuum cleaner and it cuts your hair. So it looks like he had one of those Flowbees and it kind of just lost power halfway through and thought, you know what, we'll just deal with it. And because I say that, because it started to suck the sides of his hair, but didn't cut, and he just let it go. It is weird, but he is like so like everyone seems to love him as well, follow him, and I'm just thinking, do not follow the guy who is giving you not chocolate laxatives, he's giving you speed in a bio, and he's cutting his own hair.
He is cutting his own hair, but the thing is, again, it's easy to forget, like, Josh Hartnett is also incredibly handsome. You know, he was like, yeah, he's playing like the outcast, quote unquote, but he's also like 6'2", super handsome, smart as fuck. If anything, rewatching this, because I remember I thought he was cool watching this when I was like 16 years old.
Yeah,
and just to be clear, this is one of those movies where it's one of the core movies of my youth, where it's not like necessarily the best movie in the world, but because of the time it was released, because of the generation of people it was going after, i.e. us in 1998, it felt like everybody watched this film. Everyone I know has not only seen this film, but they've seen it multiple times, and they have that connection to it. And one of the reasons, I think, and I wonder what it'd be like if you had like a Gen Z, is that what they call them? Gen Zs, the new kids? Whatever they're called. If they watched it now, if just the archetypes would feel so incredibly old-fashioned. Because you mentioned at the top, like, essentially what this is a cross between Invasion of the Body Snatchers and The Breakfast Club. Amazingly, it ticks both boxes really successfully. And I think this what kind of sets this movie apart from its peers. But what it really does, it does lean into that Breakfast Club style archetype setup. So as you mentioned, Greek, there's no Greek, geek, outcast, goth, preppy, prom queen, black guy, I guess, the token black. This is 1998, of course. There was only one black guy in Ohio.
Yeah, he's not part of the main group. He's not part of
just know it. You only notice him because he's fucking Usher. That's it. That's the only reason you notice him. But what it does is, like, it gives you someone to connect to. Like, if this movie's made now, I don't know, like, how do you separate them all? By gender, sexuality? Is that how it's and it's one of the problems. And sorry, I'm ranting a little bit early in this podcast, but Taika Waititi said it best. Like having what's the word I'm looking for? Diversity in movies. Yeah. It's not having a movie where you have a black kid, an Asian kid, a disabled kid. It's like, well, these kids wouldn't hang around. Like, they just don't belong in the same school. It's about having a movie filmed in a different country by somebody from a different culture. This film feels like everyone's from Ohio. And the one thing that differentiates most people, I can imagine, in Ohio is that archetype. Certainly back in the day, what social group do you come from? And what it does is that it means you've got something to relate to. And I think that's what this movie has. And why probably it's lived on and it has this cult status, maybe beyond its kind of initial relative success, should we say?
So as I was watching it, you knew there was going to be, if, like you said, with Gen Z or whatever it is now, usually when they watch, or when something was watched now that was filmed years ago, you have problems. And I think one of the bigger problems you would get is calling out Stokely as a lesbian.
Like absolutely torn to pieces. Like being a lesbian is the worst thing in the world.
Yeah,
you can laugh at it now, but when I was younger, the worst thing you could be called by your friends was gay back in '98 for sure.
Well, Clea Duvall, who actually came out as gay back in like 2017. So it's quite funny because I always thought she was, to be fair, because I've known Clea Duvall for a while. But it's like, it's the same when you look at the '80s, as we say, the word faggot. That is used so much.
Oh yeah, it's just a different time. Like you said, I don't even mean like in a nasty way. Like, it was just kind of cut, like, Bill and Ted and stuff like that. When they just joke around each other, they just call each other fag. That got changed later on to gay. You're gay. That was like I completely abuse that term with my friends just all the time. Oh, you're gay. That's gay. And then we've moved away from that, and that's fine. It, like, when you do go back, you do have these moments where every so often it does almost feel jarring. And like you said. Is it Dahlia? Is that the cheerleader's name?
Dahlia, yeah.
Dahlia, I mean, she's a fucking dick. Like, if you get beyond the whole thing about her calling her a lesbian. And
Delilah. Sorry, Delilah.
Delilah, it is Delilah. I knew that. Sorry, my friend just had a baby and they called it Dahlia. Anyway, Delilah. Like, she's just a straight up asshole for this entire movie. Like, you get like the kind of mean character. I'm not even sure if she gets a redemption arc. I think she's pretty much just a dick. The closest thing she gets to a redemption arc is that she's all that. Another thing from the late 90s where you take the hottest girl, you give her a ponytail and a pair of glasses, and suddenly she's supposed to be plain Jane. It's like, go fuck yourself. If anything, she looks even hotter. Like, what the fuck?
They become relatable. But I've always thought, if you put a girl in glasses and give them a ponytail, they become hotter.
Yeah. Well, but that's this film's thing, though. It's like, with the faculty, when they try and sell you on the day, like, if we're talking about plain Janes, when they try and sell you on the idea that Famke Janssen and Salma Hayek are complete smoke shows, it's like, oh, no, they're just normal members of the faculty. If anything, Famke Janssen's quite unattractive. Get the fuck.
I suppose Delilah's redemption arc is the fact that she hooks up with Casey. But you can see another part of that. She's hooked up with Casey because now he's classed as a hero. So he's got his 5 minutes of fame. So she's just riding his coattails at that point.
I think that is absolutely what happened. Because I was like, at the end of this film, the only thing more unrealistic than the fact that Famke Janssen is making it abundantly clear all of a sudden that she is taking cock from a high school student. The whole scene at the end.
Yeah, how nobody else noticed that. She's waving to him. Mate, she is riding.
She's watching him. She gives him a little wave. Everyone's like, dude, that teacher is totally fucking Zeke. It's not even subtle. I was like, that is so unrealistic. The one thing that topped it was suddenly Casey is with Delilah. Give me a break. But to your point, I was like, it's because he's famous now. He'll get his 5 minutes of fame. She'll stick around. Then she'll fuck off. That's the whole thing. But yeah, not the most likable character, but hey ho.
I mean, there was a
But
few. I had trouble with Mary Beth. Her just, I mean, as soon as you see Mary Beth, when I first watched this, it was like when you started learning about the aliens.
mhm, mhm.
Mary Beth was definitely the alien. It just there was no if and or buts about it. She was definitely the alien. It was ridiculous.
Well, the thing
And
is, this kind of lends to your argument that they are they're a dumb bunch of kids. They really are. To the point that by the end, they don't even figure out Mary Beth is the alien. It's like she gets so bored that she
Yeah.
just tells them.
Yeah.
They don't figure out shit. She's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm the alien. I'm the fucking
and
alien.
they accidentally
yeah.
saved the day. The only reason he was able to save the day was because she got trapped. And okay, he did close
So
it,
dumb.
but she got trapped behind the bleachers.
She
and he
should have seen
stabbed her in
that
the face.
coming. How
Yeah.
did she not see that coming? No, it's not like she suddenly turns into a beast. She's just in her alien form. She comes around the corner. She can clearly see him press the button. Why did she chase after him? Just wait him out and kill him when you want. You've got the whole town. You don't need to put yourself in danger. It's a totally dumb move. Although, and we have jumped directly to the end of this movie, it does lead to one of the best and worst moments of this movie. The best being, and it does, when this film leans into horror, and only does a handful of times, it does it really well. The most horrific being when Mary Beth's alien form gets squished behind the bleachers and she kind of spits like little eggs into his face.
The parasites.
The parasites into his face. It is gross. It is fucking gross. But it is then followed up by the one-liner that he gets, guaranteed to jack you up before he stabs her in the eye. I'm like, oh my God, it's so bad. It's such a bad one-liner.
So I know you said that we've gone right to the end, so let's go to the beginning. I love the start of this just for the offsprings. The kids aren't all right. Such
100%.
an absolute 90s banger for the beginning of a film. I think
Everything about it. Like
it sets us off in the right tone. But
No,
my other thing,
Oh, sorry, Karen.
sorry, my other thing about the beginning, after just as that's dying down, it was just the introduction of Robert Patrick as the coach.
Yeah, yeah.
Why was he so angry at the sprinkler?
Oh, he's just furious at everything. He's just one of those
but
guys, I suppose.
Why? Like he knows.
Why
the
did he
sprinkler.
kick the sprinkler?
Why
It
did
was
he
a
kick the
weird
sprin-
move.
And why is he trying to stop the sprinkler from spurting water? It's a sprinkler. Let it do
Are
what
they
it's intended to
suggesting
do.
it's like, oh, he hates water, but now look, he loves water. There's something fishy going on here. I mean, other than the sprinkler issue, though, I mean, one of the things we have, like, the whole point of this podcast is we go back and re-watch movies that we grew up with, and we're basically finding out, are we going to still enjoy this? This movie had me in the first 2 minutes, because as soon as The Kids Aren't All Right by The Offspring came on, you've got the classic, and they were big into it in the late 90s, the whole high school football thing. I love that aesthetic. Yeah. And then you've got Robert Patrick just going fucking mental on the sidelines. I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, I'm going to fucking love this film. I was banging to it. Like Friday Night Lights came a little bit later in 2004. We had Varsity Blues, which came out around the same time. That was
99, yeah.
Another massive movie amongst me and my friends, and I'm not sure why. Like, we weren't all fucking James Van Der Beek fans, but for some odd reason, we all watched fucking Varsity Blues. And around then, it was like, again, the whole aesthetic, the football jersey, we were just like, and it lends itself well to the music of the time. Like you said, like there's something about seeing the football game and the Offspring playing, like, fuck, man, I'm hyped. I'm fucking hyped for this movie.
The introduction of Zeke as well. He pulls up in that fucking car. The way he's right is
the Pontiac is dope.
But then
we got to give, we got to give him his dues. His haircut is ass. The rest of his look is solid.
Oh, yeah. I've always been a fan of the t-shirt, long shirt combo. The car is fucking fantastic. But the song that's playing as he pulls up as well, sticking to the music, Helpless by D-Generation. And no, not D-Generation X. It's fucking fantastic. I've been listening to that all week. That's now in my playlist. I haven't heard that song for fucking years. That song plays up, and it's just helpless, help. Oh my God. You're on point then to understand exactly what's going on in this film.
Plus, it's like for us in particular, with you, I mean, you're 40, right? And I'm 42. So you would have seen this around the same age. 41, sorry. So we would have seen somewhere between 15 and 17, I'm assuming we would have seen this film. I saw it pretty much when it came out, so I would have been like 16, 17. This was a movie so specifically made for our generation. like everything about it from like,
Yeah.
I think it helped as well that the kids in this movie, this isn't like the 80s. The kids are actually kids. Like some of them are like 20, 21, but most of them are between 17 and 20. So when you're watching it, it's like, oh, they actually look our age rather than this isn't like fucking Greece where you're like, wait, that high school kid's like 37 years old. What the fuck's going on?
I wanted to bring the ages up because you mentioned
Sorry.
Varsity Blues.
Mm-hmm.
That's when, because I love Varsity Blues as well, but they were clearly 25 to 26 years of age. They were not high schoolers. But in this, aside from, I think Clea Duvall was the oldest at 23 or 24. The rest of them were around about 19. They were still teens, late teens, but they were still teens,
And I think that made a difference. But this was a movie made for our generation growing up with the music, the aesthetic, the style. As I said, like everyone had their style, but it was all still kitted out by Hilfiger. So it looked like if you were a goth, you were a top of the range goth. If you were a nerd, you're a top of the range nerd. Although I do have to briefly mention, as cool as I do think, like when I look back, I'm like, oh man, kids probably miss out on all this, like those different archetypes and stuff. The other side of this is Casey getting his balls absolutely crushed. And they play it for jokes in it. I can't imagine a worse thing happening to me than a group of 6, by that point, pretty large guys running me balls first into a pole. I mean, that's not just the end of your morning, that's the end of your day, possibly the end of your week, certainly the end of your fucking bloodline. Forget about it.
It feels like a daily occurrence for him as well. Like he cannot be having kids. His fucking balls must look like a pancake at this point. They're just destroyed. It's so bad. Can we stick with Casey for a second, right? Well, actually, no. Before we stick with Casey, as we had the beginning of this, and you had the high school side of it, and it was giving me disturbing behavior vibes. Do you remember that film?
It's weird you say that because you know what it reminded me of? Like the whole aesthetic, and maybe it's the music and stuff as well. Remember the Deftones video?
Yeah.
Back to School? It totally fucking reminded me of that. Maybe it's just that time where all the high schools, the aesthetic, they all just kind of look the same. But yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, Disturbing Behavior I remember really liking, even though it was, I think it was slated at that point, but it might be worth revisiting at some point.
I'm not sure. Maybe I think that might be one of those we could potentially leave in the past. But it depends how many podcasts. It depends how many podcasts we do. But
Casey,
Casey. Yeah.
So it's going back to Casey, right? So Casey's trying to do the right thing. He can see that they're being taken over. There's something wrong with the faculty. I mean, I do love a swing for bringing the name of the film into the actual script as well, as we always say. When he goes, there's definitely something wrong with the faculty.
Yeah, one of the easier ones. Yeah. This isn't quite fled, but it's up there.
But it was just so not funny. But as he's going through, and then his parents not believing him, and we got to take his take his porno. But my question: when they're in there, and his parents aren't believing him, and when he tries to leave, he types on his computer like hacker style. That little robot moves, and then he jumps out of his window.
Fuck knows.
Why was he typing on his computer? What was he typing? Like, what's the robot doing?
I don't. You're thinking at that point is like, are we going to have like a Ferris Bueller like situation?
Yeah.
Where even if it doesn't really make sense, there'll be a bit of explanation. I'm just like, wait, what did he do exactly? It didn't make any sense. But when I think back to that sequence, I just think about how I would just have to leave home immediately. I mean, let's be clear, Casey is a bit of a creep. So, you've just had the scene where he and Delilah are hiding in the faculty kind of broom closet. And what does he do first thing? Smells her hair. Then 2 minutes later, you're in his bedroom and he has pictures of her next to his bed. I mean, that's pretty creepy behavior. But his parents doing that to him, the whole like porno, like with his mum, pulls up the covers. I mean, it's great by what's his name? Christopher McDonald, who I always know as Shooter McGavin, of course. Yep. But what does he say? No more flogging the bishop.
Flogging the bishop, yeah.
If my dad said that to me, I would just move the fuck out. I just don't think there's any. I always remember, and I'm not going to name names, one of my friends, the best porno story. We found his father's stash of pornos. And of course, we were like 13, 14 at the time. This is a big deal. This is back in like the early 90s. So there's no like internet, porn is something you find in the woods. So what do? We take one of them and try and smuggle out the house because his parents aren't there. As we come back, he's got it up his sleeve and his parents come back as we're leaving. And he's just talking away, but he's a terrible liar. So they eventually like, what's going on? They're like, what's up your sleeve? And he's like, oh, football magazine, like show me. what is it? No, it's just a football magazine. Eventually, he shows them it's a porno magazine, and his mum's like, "Where did you get that from? Where did you get that from?" And she goes, "It's Dad's in front of all of us." And it felt like one of those moments where everybody just looked at everyone. She didn't know what to say. She's just like, "Go in the house," and we just left. It was so fucking weird. But that's how weird porn was back in like the mid to late 80s.
We've said it before.
90s.
We've said it before, and my wife didn't believe me. We've mentioned it on this podcast before. That's how you got your porn. You found it randomly in a
100%.
black bag in the woods or something.
It's that story's not made up unless you magically you had one of those like your parents were into porn back in the day. It was a rare beast, but some people would be able to steal something from their parents. But 90% of kids, their first interaction with porn, and this would go on for many years, was they would find it in the fucking woods. And we were gross boys, so it'd be all torn up. You didn't know where it'd come from, but it would still be passed around because we were little fucking savages and we had nothing else to turn to.
You imagine there's some sort of porno theory, wouldn't you? Thinking, St. Mellons needs an influx of porn. Let's just leave this in the woods.
Oh, kind of like they have in like war-torn countries where they have kind of like packages flown in. Like somebody flies over the woods in Cardiff and just drops like old porn and it just scatters about. We just have to find it like little fucking gremlins like we were back then. Anyway, back to the movie. So Casey's a creep. But again, it's the two parts of this film, and we mentioned it earlier that, right, firstly, sorry, I just want to get on point first. Did you think that this was an Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake? Because I absolutely did, and it absolutely isn't.
No, I didn't think it was an invasion. I thought it was an homage.
It is an homage. I always just had it in my head. It was an Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake. I don't think, I know it was taking liberties and stuff, but I thought, this was like linked to the actual original. But it has no link to it whatsoever. It's just, as you say, an homage. You decided, all right, what would we do if we could combine Invasion of the Body Snatchers with like a late 90s high school movie? They've successfully done it. But the one thing it is, and I think I underappreciated it back in the day because it was the time of the meta horror film, especially with Scream coming out. And this is by the same screenwriter, is just how meta this film is. It like for the longest time, it kind of buries the lead somewhat. But then all of a sudden, you mentioned with Stokely, she's playing the character who knows all this stuff. But there's like references to, was it Carrie, Blue Velvet, The Shining, The Thing. Yeah. They actively talk about these films. They actively bring up Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And it was like, again, maybe because when you think back to this era of filmmaking and you think of meta horror films, everybody just thinks of Scream. If it wasn't for Scream, like you watch this film and go, man, this is an incredibly meta film and a much more meta film than I remember. But it does it really well for the most part, I think. Like it's clearly made by a director who loves the genre. You can feel it through every part of the film.
I've got no issue with the meta side of it because, like you said, it seems to fit really well. To be fair, I don't have a lot of an issue with any of this film. I think it's passable. I think this film is very good. The stupid.
I love that you're going to keep it under wraps to your score at the end of the film. This film is passable. It's very good. We don't know which way he's going to go. Those are two completely different things.
Which way will he go? But I forgot my fucking point now. Even the decisions that they make, which as a 41-year-old man, I've called stupid, but I've said it before. I hear a noise in when I'm watching a film, and I'm going, "Don't go upstairs, you prick! Don't go upstairs because you know the killer's up there."
Yeah.
Mate, if I hear a bang in the house, my first instinct is to go, "I wonder what that was." I'll go out and check it.
Because the thing is, I guess the idea is you don't know you're in a horror film until you're in a horror film. Like you have to assume that you can't, like, if you always assumed you're in a horror film, what you would be is, let's be clear, a pussy. Because every time you heard a bump, I'm not going out there, your wife's laying in bed next to you, like, are you going to check that out? No, it could be a goblin or a monster or a mummy. It's like, fucking go check. If it's anything, it's going to be a robber, and you as the man of the house better fucking sort your shit out and get out there. Oh, no, I think it's a vampire. I'm going to stay in bed. You can't take that approach. So if you hear a bang, you have to go upstairs. That is at the start of the movie. As the movie goes on and you do realize, oh no, these are aliens, that's a vampire, we're dealing with whatever. You've got to stop the dumb shit then. If you hear a noise and you know there are aliens in town, get the fuck out of Dodge. Like Zeke's plan at the end of the film, when they're like, oh, we're going to both run for the car. Basically what he's doing is throwing Casey to the wolves. Casey should have died, or at least been turned into an alien in that sequence.
I've had shit in the past for that. You're on about hearing a noise when you're asleep. I used to mock Dave for it all the time because Dave would say he heard a noise or like his daughter would wake him up or his wife would wake him up, and he would jump up ready to fight. Like he's been rousted out of sleep. He's ready to go. He's like got his arms up. He's ready to go. I hear a noise or there's a massive bang, and I go, what was that? Oh, back to sleep. Like for some reason, I don't have a sense of urgency. So my family's fucked then if there is a
Pretty
bang in the
much.
middle of the night.
The other thing, and I think I've said this before, I'm never more cowardly than at like 3 a.m. in the morning, like coming out of like like deep REM sleep. If I get
Yeah.
woken up and I do hear a bang, that is the only time when I will immediately go, that might be a witch. You know, like any other time, I think I'm a really level-headed person. I'm not easily scared by movies or anything. I'm not scared to die, any of that bullshit. But if you catch me at 3 o'clock in the morning and I hear a sound in the kitchen, I'm like, man, I reckon that's like 80%. 80%, I reckon that's a zombie. You know, I just immediately, it's just, I'm half still in dream world. So I immediately go to some ridiculous conclusion. I get over it and I will go check it out eventually. But there was a brief spell when I'm like, I think it might be a ghost, dude. It's like, come on, man. What the fuck?
Going back to the film, my point about the stupid decisions that they make. I can forgive it. Like I said, I can forgive the stupid decisions they make as they go through. I just can't forgive Stan for deciding to go and talk to the entire football team who is standing in the middle of the field, staring up at the stars because it's raining. And he's not thinking, oh, maybe because, yeah, these things like water. So maybe, like, dude, they're in the middle of the rain. They're not running away from it. Like, why the fuck are you getting closer to them?
Well, the thing is, as well, it's a fundamentally flawed idea. So the idea is like, okay, they think they've just killed the head teacher, whose name I have forgotten. Is it
Principal Drake?
Principal Drake.
Abby Newworth.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
They think she's like the queen. So fundamentally, this might have ended the invasion and everyone's going to turn back to normal. They have no reason to rush outside and check. They can just wait in the fucking school. They're like, if it's back to normal, we'll get found. They'll show up at the door. It'll be pretty apparent pretty quickly. If it hasn't worked, well, we're fucked, but we might as well give ourselves a chance and stay inside here. For him to just run out and be like, I have to find out immediately, it's dumb as shit. And of course, this is beyond the fact that, as we already mentioned, it's half a high school movie. It is half a horror film. And in a horror film, for the plot to move forward in any meaningful way, people have to do dumb shit. Now, I will give them the benefit and say, if it's a teenager doing dumb shit, it's more understandable. I'm not sure if you've talked to a teenager in the last few years. I had to work with a girl. She wasn't a teenager, but she was 19. It was fucking unbelievable just talking to him. I'm like, Jesus Christ, it is hard goddamn work. So the idea of a 17-year-old doing something really fucking dumb, I'm like, yeah, I get it.
And as I said, I question that as a 41-year-old now, the stupid mistakes, probably things that we did back then.
100%.
But can you forgive, or I say forgive, whose side would you be on? Zeke showed no remorse and no hesitation taking out the principal. We don't know at this point that she's been taken by the... I mean,
no, I'm all on board.
We're 90% sure she is an alien, but there's that 10%. She hasn't done anything that makes us think she's an alien. Step up, I get it. But
no. She's been talking to all the other teachers. At that point, I would say you're like 99% sure that they're aliens and she's involved. I think somebody had to, like, otherwise, what are you going to do? 1%, you let her get on top of you, you're in trouble, she's an alien, you're all dead, you've been turned. Somebody had to just shoot her in the fucking head. So Zeke stepped up, and Zeke is a weird character because all the way through, like, there's the whole, as I said, I find him quite annoying after a while. Like, his whole know-it-all shtick gets, like, they go too far with that. Like, when he's talking to the teacher, I think it's John Stewart, who's another idiot, by the way, putting his hand in the water with the clearly alien being, getting bitten and all that. Dumb as fuck.
Did you see John Stewart's name, though? John Stewart's...
Edward Furlong.
Yeah, Professor Edward Furlong.
So weird. That can't be a coincidence. But the idea that Zeke has been held back for 2 years, he's clearly going to school. There is no way he fails those exams. There's just no fucking way. He's borderline, like, I don't want to say he's quite, what's his name? Good Will Hunting. But I know Good Will Hunting isn't his name, it's just Will Hunting. But he's clearly like a borderline genius, the way he's presented in this movie. He's not getting held back 2 years. No way.
No, he's bored. He's just decided, like, his parents aren't there, so he's got no aspirations for his future. He's bored. That's all it is. He's decided to tank it for himself because he can be the king of that school. selling
maybe.
full frontal bloody videotapes of was
Oh,
it Jennifer Love Hewitt and
that's the most
Nev Campbell?
90s thing. It's not just the fact that it's Jennifer Love Hewitt and Nev Campbell, but it's the fact that it's fake VHSs of them being like topless. And like, make no mistake, back in 1998, that would sell. That would sell.
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, but make no mistake, like he isn't like going without. I know his parents aren't there, but clearly, like when they roll up at his house, the house is awesome, and he's got like his own fucking drug den. It's massive, so they're clearly sending him money. He's not going hungry, and I know it's tricky, but what is he like? He's been held back 2 years, so he might be like.
No, he's repeating his year. This is his second time repeating it, so he's only like a year older than them. So if they're 17, 18, he's 18, 19 at that point, I would say.
I think he's doing fine. He seems to be doing relatively well. I think he just might be an asshole.
I loved it, right? When they all went to that scene, not that scene, when they all went to his house and you didn't see who was in the car, but whoever was in the car was one of the faculty, pulled up in the learner driver car. I think that was the only thing they
That
could
was
get.
so fucking at first when I was watching it, because obviously it's after, and I totally forgot Delilah was an alien. I totally forgot that she had been turned by that point. I was like, oh yeah, totally. And she runs out the house then and gets it. I thought she had called a taxi. I was like, is that a fucking taxi? Although that sequence, it perfectly sums up this film. It's dumb as fuck. When they all take the drugs and they all start have you ever heard the term tweak before or after? He's fucking tweaking, man. Let him tweak. I'm like, I don't think I've ever. It's like his haircut. It wasn't used before. It wasn't used after. And Josh Hartnett's still to blame for it. But they all start acting. They all go again. Very Breakfast Club. Breakfast Club. I love that movie. But when they all get stoned, they start acting like complete morons.
I mean, it's over fake. I mean, these are people. These are people and these are kids who grew up in Hollywood. You all know how to take drugs. I'm sorry. You all know how to take drugs. You've seen somebody in your Hollywood parties taking drugs. This is not how you act. Stop going overboard. Like I can 100%. Oh yeah, but I can 100% see Elijah Wood never have taken drugs. For some reason, I just don't think that guy.
He's as geeky as he looks, I think, in this film.
Yeah. So maybe that's how he thinks they act. I get that. But people around him go, no. That's not how you, especially not the fucking caffeine and aspirin or whatever the fuck he's snorting.
Yeah, there's no reason for the reaction they all get. Like I said, it is actually quite charming in the same way that The Breakfast Club is. And I think that's now. I think watching this back in 1998, that was a tough watch in the same way that when you're younger and I watched Breakfast Club and it didn't have that same kind of nostalgia attached to it and wistfulness where you're like, well, of course it's ridiculous. It's from the 80s. When the first, like I mentioned before, the first time I watched Breakfast Club, it just didn't work for me because it was the worst time I could possibly watch it. I was like just out of high school myself watching it for the first time. Like, look at these fucking dweebs. I was like, nobody acts like that when they get stoned. Of course, when you watch it when you're older, it all becomes quite charming. And it was the same with this. Watching this when you're younger, you're like, they're reacting like that to a bit of caffeine. It's nonsense. Now I'm like, look at this silly film from 1998. It's all kind of charming and comes back around. But it's a cool little homage to the thing. And there's two homages to the thing. There's this sequence, and when Famke Janssen's head comes off, I mean, that is brazenly the thing when her head crawls back into her hand.
It's the spider thing. But I did like. It didn't give you the ramped up tension that you get from the thing.
No. It's not. Well, it's just not as good a film, but I don't think it's aiming to be.
But I did like that
homage
to it, like the whole drug test scene. But it was just, I don't know, the overacting of it seemed to be.
It's not just the overacting. It's to force tension into the scene because it's not well written, as John Carpenter's The Thing. Blah blah blah. You force a reaction and you force tension by every single one of them saying no to the drugs. Nobody just fucking says, all right, this is a pretty fucked up situation. I'm going to prove it. I'm just going to snort it. Not a single one. Even Zeke is like, oh, I don't
I don't get high on my own supply. Yeah.
I was like, fucking hell, dude, you're the one with the gun trying to force everyone else. How about surely he'd be the one person you just sniff and go, come on. I sniffed it. Everyone else do it. And it's just like, really, every single one of you is going to say no, and we're going to have this little situation over and fucking over again. It's like ridiculous.
I love that flashback, though, to Mary Beth. When they said, oh, well, we saw you take the drug. It's like, no, you didn't. And then you have that flashback of her closing her nostril up, but then her little finger becomes elongated. I mean, nobody saw that. You're all staring at this girl taking the drug, and none of you saw her tentacle finger.
They actually did a pretty good job in the film. Like when you watch it initially, because I was like, wait a minute, because obviously you know where it's going. they say, oh, we're both going to do it at the same time. So they both snort. But obviously, Dahlia, who's one of the aliens, she immediately flips out and nobody's looking at Mary Beth. So I think she did, and that was Mary Beth's idea. She's like, well, she's just throwing one of the minions under the bus, basically. And because she knows she's going to get a reaction from them, everyone's going to be looking at her. So I think they maybe did just enough with Mary Beth to kind of trick them. Not obviously you're watching like, was clearly fucking Mary Beth. But that's the whole fun thing about the film. It's like, sure, we're all, even watching it back in 98, we're pretty sure early doors that Mary Beth was going to be the alien. Although there is the element of like, is it so obvious that it can't be her and it'll be like a, double cross, whatever. But like The Thing and across the whole film is the idea that it can be anyone. And it's almost a bit of a shame that, and I do like most of the things about this movie, is that they don't play that up enough. The whole idea is like, it could be any of us. They play it once or twice, but they figure things out pretty quickly. And there are very few reveals beyond Delilah throughout the rest of the film, which I think is a bit of a shame. And the only other real issue I have actually is, this film has basically got two casts and they're both amazing. And I get it. You want to keep the running time down to something reasonable, and the emphasis should be on the kids because it's one of those generational movies. But The Faculty is made up of a fantastic cast, and they don't really get as much screen time as I'd like. Like, Robert Patrick, he's awesome in this. Would I like more Robert Patrick? Great. Would I like more Salma Hayek? Would I like more Famke Janssen? Yes, especially the sexy versions of them. And you just don't really get it.
I was all right with Salma Hayek in the nurse's outfit, to be fair, mate. I had a bit of a problem with Famke Janssen in her cardigan when she was trying to downplay her hotness. But
and not only that, but she put down, she's so striking because you have to remember she was a model. Like, she's that kind of like, not just like next door, like, oh, the hottest girl in your school. She's model hot. And I've said this before, like there's different levels. It's like Transformers movies. Like, as hot as Megan Fox was, she still had that air of she might just be the hottest girl in your school. And then for the third film, I think it was, they brought in a supermodel. And the thing is, they kind of look like aliens. No link to this film, obviously. And with Famke Janssen, she has that. She's like 6'2", whatever the fuck she is. She looks like a model. And to make her try and look, again, plain Jane, homely, whatever, they have to go so overboard to the point where you're like, she would never be a teacher. She's like the worst teacher. As soon as any student says anything, she looks like she's going to burst into tears because that's the only way you can play it. And even like Salma Hayek, they're like, oh, the nurse's outfit isn't enough. We're going to have to give you a really bad cold as well, just so you look a little bit gross. Yeah, silly.
I completely forgot, just talking about having the cold, I completely forgot Harry Knowles was in this.
I know, and I don't want to see that cunt. I'm sorry about the language, but I never liked that motherfucker. I don't really like his writing. I'm like, I forgot how big a deal he was. Because it was like early days of internet, and he was like an internet thing, wasn't he? Especially amongst like the geeky. It makes sense for this kind of film.
He had one of the first ever internet review sites, didn't he? So
Ain't It Cool News?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't care for him at all. So I totally forgot he was in it, and I could, luckily he doesn't have any lines. He's just in one of the faculty sequences where he's just moving around water. So it's not egregious, so it's fine. We get him that day, but I totally forgot. What is egregious is, like I said, Jon Stewart is acting really dumb, but we've already gone through that. Everybody has to act dumb. It's a horror film, so it is what it is.
I like Daniel von Bargen as John Tate. I loved it when they were in the faculty lounge and they were looking for new scoops. Mm-hmm. And he's going, "Oh, look, there's this flask." I was like, "Oh no, we exposed his alcoholism last year. Nobody cares." And it's just the fact that nobody cares. He hasn't even hidden that flask, the faculty, before they've been changed. That flask was on the shelf. Mm-hmm. And he was just taking it. So I love how he takes it home, refills it, brings it in, and just puts it on the shelf. And everyone's like, "Yeah, that's fine. We can just let him do it."
It's weird again, though. I feel like that was like a thing people, to an extent, used to be get away with, and also like people wouldn't intervene in the same way. I remember when I was working, it was one of my first jobs back in Cardiff. It was like Tesco head office. And there was this girl. I mean, it's not the same because she's not a teacher, but she was, she's working alongside, one of the desks alongside me. And she would always have a 2-liter bottle of Coke on her desk. And it was just well known that a quarter of that was just filled with vodka. You could smell it. You could fucking smell it. The booze on it. And she would just sit there in the office and just king vodka and Coke all day. Not in that fun way, in the, oh, she's an alcoholic way.
She might have a problem, yeah.
Yeah, but nobody knew how to broach the subject back in like the early 2000s, late 90s. So it was just allowed to go on. And, it was like people drinking in their car, teachers drinking too much. I remember like there was this like sacred, like you never went into the teacher's lounge. And what did it used to smell like when you were younger? Coffee and cigarettes. They would just be in there cane smokes. And if you told me that they were in there just throwing back shots, I'd be like, I kind of believe it. So yeah, a drunk teacher doesn't really work in 2024. In 1998, it totally flies.
I'd like to think in my high school they were probably just I don't know, Irishing up their coffee a bit before they had to.
100%.
I mean, we were
100%.
bastards in
Exactly.
bastards in Rumney High. You had to fucking deal with us somehow.
Oh, fuck. You went to Rumney High. Most of the teachers must have been alcoholic there. They fucking must have been. I went to Cardiff High. They were fine. They just smoked. That was more than enough. But Rumney High, you were getting on the booze.
I've mentioned this before, and people always look at me like strange. When you were in trouble, were you sent out the class or something like that? You had to sit out the class. We were sent to something called the holding room.
The holding room? Like a prison or Auschwitz?
Well, the teacher would sit outside of the holding room, and you would have to go in on your own, sit at a chair, no windows, right? One door.
So and you're talking about solitary confinement?
Pretty much. Well, I know, because if more than one person was sent to the holding room, there's more of you in there. But the teacher's not inside. The teacher's outside.
Yeah.
And it's one door, and the door had bars on it.
What the fuck, dude?
Yeah, dude.
I heard stories about Rumney High School. I didn't know it was that fucking ghetto. Jesus Christ, bars on the door, solitary confinement. Oh my, absolutely shocking, absolutely shocking.
I mean, I spent quite a bit of time in the holding room.
But you have to remember with this film, when we're talking about, teachers drinking, is that, and I'm only bringing this up because I bought the Blu-ray, because for some reason this movie is £5 to rent on Amazon, £6 to buy digitally. I was like, fuck that, I'm just going to buy the Blu-ray. So I'm reading the blurb on the back, and the first thing it says, and refers to itself as being hip and edgy. Nothing is less cool than referring to yourself as hip and edgy. I was like, fucking hell. I was like, and that was before I watched the film. I was like, oh, this is going to be a fucking train wreck of a movie going back and rewatching it. I'm not sure if it's hip and edgy, but it is fun. It is fun.
Add that to hip and edgy. You're also tweaking when you're on this. What was the name of the drug?
Scat, which I'm pretty sure is just slang for shit. Yeah, so I know what he's thinking.
Yeah. Like, it is, right? Yeah, it is. Scat is, scat.
Why would you put scat? Anything called scat is not going up my goddamn nose, put it that way. But one of the things I actually learned from the Blu-ray, I'm not sure if you ever knew this, it's pretty cool actually. The tagline for this movie, and I never even knew it had a tagline, was "Take me to your teacher." And I was like, that is actually kind of cool. Never knew that. I'd never seen it before, but on the poster specific, and I think it was one of those like German DVDs, but it's multi-language, or sorry, Blu-rays. It had "Take me to your teacher" on the front. I was like, I don't think I've ever noticed that before, but pretty cool all the same.
I didn't think I had like many mental issues like OCD or anything like that, right? Turns out I have a real problem. Obviously, I have now, because we got like the fucking Point Break 2 meatball situation. I had a real problem with Zeke offering scat and the pen's not being the right way up on both of them. Like when he's
that's fair enough.
When he's offered them to one, you got the pen the right side up on the other one, but to Danny Masterson, it was upside down. I was like, just change the fucking pen. This is really upsetting me.
I see what you mean. Like, theoretically, it's like they should be able to figure that out themselves. But from an aesthetic point in the movie, yeah, it makes sense if you just have them both the right way. Especially as he makes such a big deal out of it. Like, it's a visual thing, isn't it? The way he like hands them over, it's all very dramatic. They should be the right way around. But do
you know?
Yeah, I just like, as smart as he is, calling his drug scat, not the sharpest tool in the box.
Do you know the fuck you boy and the fuck you girl? The two that just kept
arguing. That's what they literally referenced as in the...
Yeah, fuck you boy, fuck you girl, yeah.
Brilliant.
So the fuck you girl was Summer Phoenix, River Phoenix's sister.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Who was married to Casey Affleck for a time. I don't know if she still is married to him, but yeah.
Well, that was one of the things with this film is like, again, because this film is turned into a cult hit, I think everyone just assumed it was like a bit of a whatever mid-budget horror film. And again, I guess it was mid-budget. But the idea, like, I think because they had the screenwriter on for this film and it was another meta film and all that jazz, is I think the expectation was that this was going to be a monster hit. Now, this was a hit. It had like a 20-something million budget. I think it made 60-odd million, and obviously it's gone on to make a lot of money via its cult status on DVD, Blu-ray, all that jazz. But when they released it, they were like, this is going to be a monster, and these are going to be like the next big stars. So like Josh Hartnett, Elijah Wood, Claire Deval, and it's a weird mix because some of them have obviously Usher's gone on to do pretty well. Jordana Brewster as Delilah, she went on to do the Fast movies. Josh Hartnett is obviously, he's having like the second phase of his career now. Elijah Wood obviously had the Lord of the Rings and stuff. The interesting one is like Sean Hatosi? Is that how you say his name? The guy who played Stan? Hattersley? That makes loads more sense. Hatosi, he's not Japanese. Ridiculous. He's actually, I thought, going back and rewatching that I wasn't going to like him. I was like, oh, I don't buy him as like, oh, he's like the fucking jock who suddenly wants to become smart and stuff. And I was like, I rewatched it, I was like, he's actually okay in this film. Like, they're all pretty good. And he was like the one I was convinced, I was like, if anyone's going to feel like the weak link, it's going to be him. And I rewatched it, I was like, no, man, he's good. He's got that movie star something. But I just never saw him again in anything else.
So he's had a resurgence on TV.
Yeah.
He's had a big resurgence on TV. You should watch him in, and I haven't seen them all yet, but he plays Andrew Pope Cody in Animal Kingdom, which is an American TV remake of an Australian film with Guy Pearce. And Animal Kingdom's great, but he plays one of the the bad guys in it. And he's so intense in it. He's so good in it.
Like I said, he's good in this.
He's good in it. I don't know if I would have bought him as the jock. Now, what I did like about it was they're trying to sell him as the jock, but he's not full on jock. It's like, I don't know, he's quitting he's not quitting high school. He's quitting the team now to try and concentrate on his academics. And I kind of bought that more than just buying him as a full on jock. So
yeah, well, I thought that was the thing. I was like, oh, I'm not going to buy him as this full-on jock. But then I was like, well, that's kind of the point, because he's been forced into this life as being a quarterback. But deep down, that is the whole thing. He's not actually that person. And that's what, again, if you look behind the surface level of this film, it's like the two things it does. We mentioned that it's something of a 2-in-1 movie, in so much that it's a high school movie and it's horror film. And it deals with both sides as well. You get like the fear of female sexuality. Like, that's a constant running theme throughout this film. If ever somebody is acting sexy, they're an alien. Like, simple as. If anyone's throwing dick or throwing vag, I'm not sure if that's a term, and I hope it's not, and I apologize for bringing it up, they're basically an Asian. And like, that is... the genre's got a long history of female sexuality as being this like element of horror. And the other one, which leans into both, and especially the other side, is the teen alienation. The idea that you're stuck in these cliques, but you don't feel comfortable. It's the same with Stokely. Like, oh, she's the goth, she's pretending to be a lesbian, but she's in love with like the thoughtful jock and all these other things. Is Delilah really as much as a bitch as she's supposed to be, or is she just playing the part? Casey wants to be cool, but he's stuck as the geek. There's one in every school, as Delilah said. You're fated to be that person almost. And every character is like fighting against that. And again, the two parts of the film, they both work in tandem with one another. It never feels like one comes at the expense of the other. And rewatching it, even though it's not the scariest film, it's not necessarily the funniest film, it's not even the best high school movie, but what it does every element well. And it's almost like more than the sum of its individual parts. And it just makes it just a really fun watch. And in many respects, a really unique watch. And we've mentioned it a whole bunch of times. Whenever we've done a horror film, the one thing that often... that's one horror film, aside from others, or even action movies and stuff, is that if you're going to kill off characters and you have a threat, you've got to make them interesting. You've got to make them care. So even though not many of the characters get killed and everyone basically just comes back at the end, kind of like Endgame 2 shit, the whole point is when they do get, whatever you want to say, what's the word I'm looking for? Mind controlled by the aliens, taken over, whatever the fuck it is. You actually care about all the characters by the end of the film. So, when things happen, it actually matters rather than, oh, that just douchebag's getting killed off. I don't give a fuck. So it all comes back to the cast again.
That leads me to an interesting question, right? You can clearly see at the end, Jon Stewart, Professor Edward Furlong, he's back, but he has an eye patch now because they've stabbed him in the eye. Is Bebe Neuwirth as Principal Valerie Drake back? And if so, does she have a patch over the hole in her head? Or is
that
she
dead? The thing. It feels like that last sequence is played for a quick laugh with Jon Stewart, but it also raises so many fucking questions. It's like you said, are all these people who have been injured and stuff, are they going to be fine? I don't know.
Because they originally, she died twice, bless her. Because Mrs. Olsen, Piper Laurie, she killed her with the scissors at the beginning. She stabbed her in the heart. And then she's back fine the next day. So Can you come back?
Yeah, why? The thing is, I think you can come back, but I think the idea is that they killed the alien inside him, because they stabbed him in the eye and that dried out the alien.
Yeah.
So then he couldn't regenerate because he was just suddenly human again. So
he was just laying on that floor until all the other aliens died.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah. Or they've like just moved him off somewhere and just been like, well, he's fucked. And they just stored him somewhere like they did with the other teacher, assuming he was dead. But he wasn't dead. He was just alien dead. I'm guessing at the rules here, but that's the only way you can justify it, is the idea that they've killed the alien, but they haven't done enough to kill him because they just stabbed him in the eye and he hasn't bled out. So the alien's dead, but he's still living. So he doesn't regenerate. But then why didn't they just kill him? Because they're like, well, our alien buddy's dead. So we don't want this fucking teacher around anymore asking questions. So let's end him. Again, it doesn't make any sense. I think they've just done it for a vague laugh at the end of the film and raised, as you said, far too many questions.
I mentioned Fuck You Girl. I'm going to mention Fuck You Boy, right? Played by John Abrahams. Now, John Abrahams has been in loads of films that I'll probably mention. You'll go, what's that? What's that? I'm not even going to try. But one of his best ones, he was Bobby Prince in Scary Movie. Basically, the Skeet Ulrich character.
That's the one I remember, yeah.
Yeah.
When I saw him, I was like, he was from Scary Movie. That's the main one I remember.
I just always remember that. In case you haven't figured it out, I'm gay. And in case you haven't figured it out, so's Ray. I ain't gay. Yeah, but what about that time you took me?
No. You suck my dick.
You suck my dick. But you told me you love me. No. You bought me some shit.
What about that time we made love? No. So I think that's such a great line. Like, if you did like the gayest thing in the world, but you wanted to tell people you did, it's like, no. He sucked my dick. That doesn't make me gay. It's like, it's fine. Scary Movie is not a classic, but that is one of the better sines in the movie.
One of the other ones as well is when they're doing the I Know What You Did Last Summer thing where they're all in the car. And they're in the back. I think you've got Ray and Lachlan Monroe, who's playing the Reese Philippe character in the back of the car. He's going, "Oh baby, I love that with your finger in my ass." My finger's not in your ass, Ray.
Yeah, not the funny scenes with him. It's like when he's with the guys. He's like, "Does this look gay?" And they're like, "No." And he like tucks it up. And he's like, "How about now?" It's like some of that stuff's funny. It's just fucking funny. The first Scary Movie film, while not great as a parody, and let's be clear, most parodies are terrible, it's actually okay. Although, admittedly, I've not seen it in a long time. It's kind of like the She's All That high school, Not Another High School movie, the one with Chris Evans in it. Like, that's got the great secret, which is a send-up of basically this, and certainly She's All That, when they're trying to pick like the ugliest girl. Who can he take to prom? Who can he turn into prom queen? And she's clearly smoking hot, and he's like, "Oh, she's got a ponytail. Look at that. She's got dungarees. She's got paint on her top. Oh, what the fuck? Like, she's a complete mess." And it's like, dude, she's clearly smoking. It's ridiculous.
I'm all right with Scary Movie 1. I said I haven't seen it in a while. I think it's okay. Scary Movie 2, I didn't mind, but the problem was then it gave us 14 other fucking scary movies after that, which
they are just of course diminishing returns and stuff like that.
Right, before we move on to favorite scene, is anything else you wanted to mention about the film?
I don't think so. I mean, the only really weird thing, and you might bring it up in facts, is because I was kind of alluding to the fact that it wasn't as big a hit as people were expecting. A large part of that is because this was insanely released on Christmas Day. I'm not sure if they were trying to.
I mentioned it last week, didn't I?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's like this counter viewing thing. Like Channel 4, when like the Queen's speech is on, they give you something else to watch in case you don't want to watch the Queen's speech. It'll be something weird as fuck, like Ali G back in the day, giving the equivalent of the Queen's speech. I'm not sure if that's what they were going for, but it obviously didn't work. This movie still did okay, but I get the impression that if you'd released this around, I don't know, fucking Halloween, it might have made twice as much, but it is what it is. The good news is it did fine in the end. So,
is this the first time you've known that the US have Christmas Day releases?
No, I know they have Christmas Day releases.
Okay.
We would release over here, it'd be on Boxing Day instead.
Yeah.
It's just the idea of releasing this movie at Christmas time, regardless of whether it's Christmas Day or Boxing Day. It's just a weird ass time. So I think they were like, oh, this might be fun. It might get people's attention. But I think really people don't want to watch horror films at Christmas, or at least most people, especially, if you're looking for like a under the radar hit, it might get a bit of attention and you might get a bit of a sleeper hit. But when you're going for like screen numbers, which is clearly what they were hoping for, you can't fucking release this on Christmas Day. It was such a dumb move. So they kind of shot themselves in the foot there. But as I said, it's totally lived on. It's one of those films, as soon as you start posting about it, people are like, I fucking love that film. People have an attachment to it, especially people our age. But it's not just us. It is a cult movie. It has been picked up, although I feel like nobody really talks about this movie anymore. I certainly don't see it on TV anymore, put it that way.
No, I think it's been lost in the ether, to be fair, but
Mhm.
it's still one to always. It's still fun to always go back and revisit this. Like I haven't seen it for a while, but I'll enjoy it. I'll watch it again in the future. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no, as
kind
I
of just
said, it's one of
disappeared.
those. It's aged well. Like if you get like a decent copy of this, it's like a decent transfer. It doesn't have to be. I'm not talking 4K, but just the Blu-ray one. And a big part of that is, despite the fact that Robert Rodriguez is something of like an auteur to a certain extent, this doesn't necessarily like jump out as a Robert Rodriguez film, but you can see that it was a talented director behind the camera, and like he's coming off like this is like a hot streak for him. So he like 98 was it? Obviously the faculty, but he had El Mariachi in 92, Desperado in 95, Dust Till Dawn 96, Faculty in 98. They're not the best films, but Spy Kids 1, 2, and 3 between '01 and '03 were massive, massive hits. Then you had Sin City in '05. And then after Grindhouse, he was like never quite the same. He did have Battle Angel Alita or Alita Battle Angel, whatever the fucking order is, a film which I actually thought may have flopped, but supposedly did 400 million worldwide, and I know it would have cost a lot more. It's his biggest hit in terms of pure box office. I think they're still talking about doing another movie, and
Yeah,
it's
I
another
said
one
that
of those films where it's like
I think it's
an
in line.
ambitious failure. But
It's in line for a sequel, I believe.
I'd like
But
to see
whether
one. It's
yeah,
like
I watched the first one in the cinema. I didn't think it
me
was
too.
that bad.
No, I thought it was good. It didn't quite stick the landing, but there was enough there where you're like, you could make a really good sequel to this. But yeah, other than that, I feel like he's kind of dropped off the radar considering how hot he was between like I said, 92 and say like '05, when it was just like, man, if for people of our age, Robert Rodriguez making a film felt like a big deal for a long time.
Yeah,
It doesn't
I
feel
don't
like
think they're going to give the sequel to Robert Rodriguez though, because it was the screenplay was written by James Cameron and produced by
yeah.
James Cameron. So I think he's turned around and said he's working on the sequel. So I'm out
Well,
because his fucking Avatar shit and all that is just not for me anymore. So
that's okay. You're being silly now. I mean, he is the maker of some of the greatest films of all time, but that's
yeah,
besides the point.
some of the greatest films.
No, I know,
back then,
I know. Right,
yeah.
yeah, no, but I know Avatar's not your thing. But what they are is technically unbelievable. Like if you take that same technical ability and you apply it to something you're interested in, like I know, like
Okay, yeah, I
Avatar's
get
not your
that.
thing, but the craft that goes into those movies, regardless if it's not your thing, is still light years ahead of most of the
I
films.
can't watch a film because it looks technically beautiful. Sorry, I can watch a film
No,
because
no,
I have
no,
watched
no.
them, but I'm not going to
I'm
like
not
a
just
film
saying.
because
No,
of that.
no. I totally understand that. The blue cats aren't your thing, and that's the thing with a lot of people. But there's a difference between like a bad film and a film which isn't for you. And if it's not for you, that's cool. But if you took like you said, not just the technical elements, but the craft that comes with the James Cameron film, and you apply it to something you're interested in, like it's almost a guaranteed home run. It's a guaranteed home run because he's just that talented. But I say, like, for all the talent in the world, he's not going to convince you to like Avatar because Avatar's not your thing. That's fine. But if you ask me now, do I want to see like Robert Rodriguez make Battle Angel Alita, or do I want to see James Cameron make it? It's just no fucking brainer.
Yeah, I suppose, but I mean, yeah, and because it's mainly fucking Avatar, the guy peaked in '94 for me in True Lies, because then you had Titanic, Avatar. Like, I just
Yeah,
think he peaked in.
but again, like it peaked is, but you're talking from like a preference point rather than like a success. But I'm not just talking about box office, but by any like even if Titanic's not your thing, it's still an amazing cinematic accomplishment. It won like fucking 12 Oscars. It's not like
Yeah,
you can I can understand you saying Titanic isn't for you, but to say like, oh well, he was shit is just, I mean, that just doesn't stand up at all because
yeah,
it was
no, I
the
get
biggest
that.
film of all time. It won all the Oscars. It was clearly very good at what he was trying to do,
What
even
I'm
if what he was trying to do wasn't your cup of tea, which I totally
I love
understand.
this. But what I'm saying is, from my point of view, he is shit. Now I get all that, but looking past it, because from Titanic and like since '94 or
Yeah.
'97, he's done films I haven't liked. So
No,
he's not
I'm
good anymore. To
no,
me,
yeah,
he's shit.
no,
No,
but that
but for me, he's
no,
shit.
yeah, but it's the use of the term shit. It's
Okay,
objectively what
okay,
you're saying is brazenly and blatantly incorrect.
all right.
He's
Bring it back
clearly
to.
not shit. He's just making films that you don't like,
But
which
that's
is
for you. But that's for you. But
yeah,
for me, I'll bring it back to Faculty. He's clearly scat because
yeah. No, but I think there are two different things though. Like he's not making bad films. He's making films you don't like. That doesn't mean they're shit.
to
Like
me
there are
they're
films
bad
I don't.
films.
They're
But to me, they're
not
bad
bad
films. To me,
films,
they're
though, are
shit.
they?
They are though, aren't they? If I
They're
can't
not
if
at
I
all.
can't watch it, sit there because I don't like it or I haven't felt any relation to them,
Yeah, but that
then
just
they're
means
shit,
it's
and I'm
not
not going to go
good.
back. Yeah, and for me, they're shit. That's
Yeah,
my
no,
personal
that just means
preference.
you don't. Yeah, but when you say something shit, that makes it sound like it's just bad. And
Yeah, it is, but they are. You made me
it,
watch
can
Titanic.
you
It's
not
bad.
just? Can you not just? I don't know how you can make the argument it's bad when it's been so successful. It wins all those. It's clearly objectively good. It's just not your cup of tea.
And
I
it's not
just
my
think the
cup of
two
tea. So
things
for
are
me, but yeah,
completely
but for
separate.
me,
But
no,
that
they're not
means
though.
that doesn't mean it's shit. It doesn't mean
It
it's
is.
shit.
It does mean it's
And
shit.
it means you don't like it. Those are two
Yeah, to me,
separate things.
but
And this is the problem with the fucking internet and all these people. They're like, that shit. I'm like, well, it's not shit. You don't like it. The two are mutually exclusive.
I don't think like I get that, and I'm against the internet for all that stuff as well. Like what they for the crow thing, we've already discussed that off screen, and I love how this is just turned into. If we were in the same room right now, we'd be fucking fighting.
Absolutely. Well, no, it's just one of those things. What we're really arguing about is semantics, and we've gone off piece, so it's absolutely fine. I totally understand it. But like I said, Battle Angel, like Elisa, is like that's one of his more like financially successful films. But I don't think anybody's like, man, that Robert Rodriguez film. I'm not even sure if people associate with him. But this was in like a run for him, and he did have, and you get it with other directors. We've seen it when we've gone back through these podcasts. You get these directors who are on just like a hot streak for fucking like 10 years, where they make just nothing but great movies. And then like Rob Reiner he was a classic one, 10-year run where it was just nothing but gold. And then all of a sudden, what was that one he did with Bruce Willis? Was it North? The one where he's like a bunny rabbit?
Elijah Wood, yeah.
Yeah. He's like, he made that film and his career just fucking fell off a cliff. Like the rest of his films just didn't like, I'm not saying they were all terrible, but like in terms of the quality in the like preceding decade, it just never came back again. And you get, excuse me, with certain directors, and Rodriguez had that to a certain extent. Like he was just the next big thing, and he was for a while, and then it hasn't worked out. But I can't remember what my initial point was. We're so fucking off piece now.
Did you hear right that apparently Rodriguez is directing a Cobra TV show?
What, this based on Stallone?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I mean, I'm all for it. You've got to get the right guy, though. You've got to get, like, he has to have the look, doesn't he? Who would you cast as Cobra today? That's the problem.
There's two. So I'll go back to that casting question in a second. The Sylvester Stallone confirmed in an interview with E that a Cobra series is coming with Robert Rodriguez directing. So does that mean that Sylvester Stallone he's done because he's done that fucking Taylor Sheridan film, haven't he? Not the TV show, sorry. At the moment, it's on Paramount.
Not Toluca.
Tulsa King.
Toluca.
Yeah. So maybe he's like in a bit of. So maybe he's coming back as Cobra. But I don't know.
Listen, of all his characters, because he doesn't fight so much as just shoot motherfuckers. I mean, except for at the end when he has like that axe fight or whatever the fuck it was. The ending to Cobra, as we mentioned, was mental in 1986, whatever it was. The idea of bringing back like an aging Cobra, almost like a Dirty Harry situation where he just goes around and just fucking shoots people up. I'm like, yeah, I think he could still play Cobra. You'd have to change his look a bit, but I like the idea of like a badass Stallone in his 70s.
I mean, if you're bringing him back, that's fine because I'd like to see if he's changed the way he eats pizza. But
no, I would insist. I would insist if you're bringing back Stallone, he has to eat pizza and he has to eat it in the same batshit way he does in the movie. Essentially.
Randomly, I was thinking, so if we were recasting Cobra, it'd be interesting to see, like, because you don't want to make Cobra too young.
No. He'd have to be like late 30s, early 40s kind of thing.
Yeah. So I'm not too sure off the top of my head who I would pick.
I have no idea. And the thing is, if you try and bring in a no name, it really works for TV shows when you're like doing them based on movies. I got to be honest, like if I'm seeing Cobra coming back, I kind of only want to see it if Stallone is doing it. I'm not sure if I want to see someone else do it, and I'm not sure if Cobra works in 2024. I mean, it's basically like mentioned like Dirty Harry Light to a certain extent. I'm not sure if that flies anymore. But
but the one thing you want to do, and I love it. This is a faculty podcast. We've gone off the fucking rails.
We really have, haven't we?
Don't do Cobra Junior. Don't have him be Cobra Senior, and then it's all about the son. It's not going to work.
I don't want that. I mean, you could have him have a certain, like, kind of like they did with Axel F, where it's like his daughter's in it, but the emphasis needs to be on him still. I'm still not a massive fan of them having kids and doing that whole shit. We've seen it a million times. It's rarely done well. Even with Axel F, which I quite enjoyed, I thought it was the weakest element of the film. I think back to like the Mummy sequels when they brought in Brendan Fraser and what's her name? What's the name of the actress?
One Rachel Weisz. It wasn't there in
Oh,
the
it
third
wasn't
one.
even Rachel White.
Yeah.
No, oh, Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
it's got even worse then. But anyway, moving on. Should we get on to favorite scene?
Yeah, go on. I'll go first. So for
Cool,
me,
go
the
for it.
favorite for me favorite scene was the introduction. The kids
Mhm,
aren't all right. You're introduced to the whole cast,
mhm.
the way they act,
I
and
like
like
the way they do it
they
as well, where they have
clicks.
like the names on screen. No fucking round. You
Yeah,
don't have to like force into narrative. It's just these are their names. Get on with your
yeah.
fucking movie.
And then it moves on then to Degeneration song "Helpless," and you get the introduction of Zeke, and you see where. So that introduction right up until uh Robert Patrick being pissed off with the grass, I think is
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's absolutely great.
I have the exact same thing written down. I was going to make a push for the cheesy but fun drug showdown, the kind of homage to the thing. I really like
Yeah,
that. I did like it when the movie went like full horror for a while. Like the sequence with Stan in the shower with the lady, the older teacher, and like part of the head comes off, and then it goes into the whole bit with the fact in the broom cupboard. I can't speak, and she falls down. It goes like full horror for a while. It kind of like gets a bit more fun after that. But the correct answer is the opening sequence. It was my
yeah.
favorite part. It really like to get the movie rolling like straight away, get you on board. No fucking rounds, no unnecessary dialogue. It's just like here's the characters, this is the tone, this is the music. We are off to the races. And yeah, same thing. I was like, this is awesome. Why is he kicking that water? I don't get it. Yeah, it's very
I
strange.
just
But,
never understood why he's so mad at the grass.
it does kind of stop that intro dead because it's so propulsive. The way it's shot, the way they introduce the characters, you're just like, man, you are moving at 100 miles an hour from the moment it shows up. Like you said, Zeke with his car. And then all of a sudden, you're just like, wait, what's going on? Is this a thing or is it just by chance? Anyway, but yeah, I agree. It's the best thing in the film. Loves?
Yeah, so for 90% of it, the cast I think are
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, totally agree.
And like Jordana Brewster she may have needed a bit more. I'm not a huge fan of Laura Harris as Mary Beth, but I think Claire Duvall Stokely is great.
Mhm.
Sean Hardesty as Stan. I mean, yeah, Josh Hartnett stands out as Zeke. You couldn't get a better geek than you did for Elijah Wood. So I think for the most part, the cast stands out really well. Big fan of that. Uh, I want to. My second one, I want to give a highlight to Zeke himself. I think Josh Hartnett does great in this. This is his second film.
After Virgin Suicides?
Yeah, I believe so. That was first, was it?
That's what I thought. Like, I thought that was his breakout film. It's very close anyway. I'm not.
Because it's not far from. So was it this and then Halloween H2O? Was it Halloween H2O?
That Halloween H2O, I think, came after this. I had it in my
Okay.
head, Halloween H2O, because the whole thing is like it was like playing up on the idea, not only 20 years, but it's like the end of the second is 2000 coming up.
Well, they're both actually 98. So
Oh,
no,
sorry,
the
my
Virgin
bad.
Suicides was 99, mate. So Halloween
Oh, I've
H2O.
got the wrong one. Sorry, my
Yeah.
apologies.
Halloween H2O, The Faculty, and then the Virgin Suicides. So yeah, for his second film,
Mhm.
I think his second horror, so he's running away from something else.
Yeah, I
think
obviously I couldn't even remember. It just felt like a blanket was thrown over it, like those three movies that they all came out so closely. All of a sudden, you're just getting Josh Hartnett all the time,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
And for my third, you could go for loads, right? You could go for Robert Patrick.
Mhm.
You could go for how it looks. I think, like you said, the cinematographer. I think it made it look great. The whole high school setting is fantastic.
Yeah,
Anything
yeah.
like that. But I got to go for Zeke's car.
Dude, our lists are so fucking similar on this. I mean, as much this is a perfect example of our podcast. After we basically just had a complete breakdown, completely disagree on something, we then follow up by agreeing on fucking everything. It's always the same. It's either completely agree on everything or completely disagree on everything. And I've got a great cast as number one, solid mix of old school teens and cool supporting characters. Great teachers, the four works, and that mix of like Breakfast Club and sci-fi horror. Number two, Zeke's whole look beyond the hair, as we mentioned, including the dope ass 1970 Pontiac GTO 3, like an amazing. GTO 3 being my next point. I do apologize. It's just the way I was written down. It's not a GTO 3, it's just a GTO. And number three, just classic Americana at every turn. A lot of that comes from the solid direction from Robert Rodriguez. I like the use of subtle meta if I was going to throw in an extra one, but it really is just that all-American aesthetic at the end of the century, which is just very much our time. And when I was totally in the whole Americana thing, and this absolutely fucking nails it. I love the whole football thing. I love the look of the school. Aesthetically, as I said, and it's not a given. It's not just because of the time frame. As I mentioned, I rewatched Final Destination recently, the first film, and I was like, man, some of the clobber is rough. The way it's shot, it looks like a 98 film for the most part. This looks like, and we always say like the best examples of movies we've gone back to almost look like a film shot that could have been shot today, but was about 1998. If you see what
Yeah.
I mean. If this was shot in 2022, but it was just set in 1998, it almost has that vibe, rather than feeling like, oh, this feels like it was shot in 1998, which is a completely different beast. So yeah, those are my loves as well. So very similar to your own, basically.
Number one for hates, and it's a bit harsh to be fair, but Laura Harris is Mary Beth. I just didn't like Mary Beth. I didn't like the acting style or anything like that, so I just wasn't a huge fan of that. Stan's decision to go to the fucking football field,
Yeah.
just
In
really,
a movie of dumb decisions, that one does stand out.
yeah, it really got to me. I could mention the fact that he called his drug scat or anything like that, but my third one is going to be Not Enough Salma Hayek as Nurse Rosa Harper.
Yeah, it definitely had the vibe of like she was on set for like a day.
Yeah.
So it's like we're going
She
to
was
get the
just
most
doing a
out of it.
favor for Rodriguez at that point.
Yeah, and they were just like, oh, it'll be like a selling point. It's like, oh, we've got Salma Hayek in this coming off Desperado, and Dust Till Dawn was 96, wasn't it? So that would have just come out relatively recently. So it would have been a big deal to have her in the movie to one extent or another. But yeah, it definitely has that vibe of, all right, we've got her for one day. Let's shoot this and move on with our movie. For me, the hates, the CG monster at the end. In fact, that the CG throughout, it's from that era when late 90s, when if you could have CG, it was almost like we're showing off. It's a shame because when they do go practical with the effects in this movie, it's really effective. But if anything ages this movie, it's some of the CG, and yeah, especially the big CG monster at the end and the fingers and all that jazz. It doesn't really hold up. Number two, Zeke is actually quite annoying. Like, he looks cool, but he's a bit of a know-it-all and a bit of a dick. And the fact that like glasses are supposed to look like the worst thing, like glasses and a ponytail, that's just aged horribly. It's like, oh my god, like nobody. It's almost like a Clark Kent thing. It's like, oh, you're wearing glasses and a ponytail. I'm going incognito. It's like, you clearly just look like the same person. And if you were trying to go incognito, how about you don't dress like a completely different person who's clearly like, it would just bring so much attention to you. If you'd never put your hair up before, and then suddenly you do, no one's going to be like, who's that girl? I have no idea. It's like, she's the head fucking cheerleader. She's the prom queen. Everyone knows who you are. The fact that you suddenly put on glasses is just going to bring all yeah, it's done. It's done. Anyway, those are my hates.
I do love that meme. Zoe Deschanel. Seeing Zoe Deschanel with and without bangs and glasses makes me believe that Superman could.
In fairness, that is because I love Zoe Deschanel, but when I saw that picture of her and I was told that is her without bangs and glasses, I literally was like, wait, this feels like a setup. You know, when you start searching for other pictures, like, that can't be her. Supposedly it fucking was, but she looks like a completely different person. So yeah, if they use that example, it would have worked. Delilah in this film, it does not work one fucking bit, but hey ho. Any alternative titles for this film?
Yeah, we got a couple of alternative titles. So Argentina was Dangerous Classrooms.
That sounds like one of those movies where a white teacher goes to an inner city to teach them how to, like, do their finances and stuff, and he learns how to dance, which was that happened all the time in the 90s, by the way. Absolutely sounds like that.
Brazil, Final Exam, which sounds like a Dolph Lundgren action film set in a school.
It does. It's not bad, though. It's not bad. I actually quite like Final Exam. It sounds schlocky, but in a way, like a knowing way that this film kind of is. Like, the whole point of it is that it's quite knowing. So Final Exam, yeah, I'm on board with that.
I'm gonna actually say it better properly for once. The French Canadian title, The Teachers.
It's basically the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But maybe the faculty isn't really a thing, I suppose. I think it might be a translation thing.
Croatia, Alien File.
Alien File? No, terrible.
No, File, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a TV show. Like one of those dodgy, like, oh, look at these unreleased UFO videos from back in the 90s.
Estonia, Lessons of Horror.
Nope.
Finland doubled down with that with Horror Lessons.
Nope.
Yeah. Greece, The Invasion.
Bet on the nose, for sure.
Well, Hungary, Faculty, The Invasion.
Oh, fair enough, yeah.
Japan, Parasite.
That's okay.
Portugal, Mystery in the Faculty.
No.
Poland.
Unless you're going to introduce Poirot halfway through, I don't think it needs that.
Poland, They.
Nope.
Romania, School Under Terror.
No.
I'll look this up. Slovenia?
Nailed it. No form this week.
Chamber.
Chamber?
Yeah.
Okay, well, they haven't nailed it. That's a terrible title. So yeah, I'll go with what was it? The second one. That was the best one of the bunch.
I haven't
Easily.
finished yet.
Oh, keep going, keep going.
Taiwan, teachers are not people.
That's okay. Well, that's part of the whole point of the film is the idea that when you're younger, it feels like teachers are aliens, like they're not real people. And like that sounds ridiculous now, but can you remember the first time you saw one of your teachers out in public when you were
It
younger?
was weird. Yeah,
It was weird as fuck. I was
Yeah.
like, fuck, they are people. I thought they were just teachers. So yeah, that kind of plays into that.
And then there was a working title for the United States called Feelers.
Feelers, I don't like that. I think it was Rob Rodriguez who wanted to change the title, or he was really supportive of the title. One of the two, but somebody wasn't happy about the title of this film. I should know because I'm doing a podcast on it, but it is what it is. I'm like, when you watch those like TV shows, and not untold mysteries, unsolved mysteries, and you watch all the way through and you forget what it's called halfway through, and then gets to the end of the episode, and you're like, wait, well, what happened? And you're like, oh yeah. Unsolved, of course. I was never going to find out. Like, never watch a fucking TV show called Unsolved Mysteries. It's only going to disappoint you, I can assure you. Any facts this one?
Yeah, we got a couple. So it was on the set of this film that Harry J. Knowles first got wind of Peter Jackson making Lord of the Rings. He urged Elijah Wood to go for it, even though the actor had never read the book, which Wood duly did, ignoring the news that Jackson was largely casting British actors and videotaped his own audition.
Oh, nice. Well, it worked out for him. Harry Knowles did do something good.
I knew you were going to say that. At one point, the principal suggests saving money by reusing the set from Our Town. The joke is that Thornton Wilder's Our Town has no set.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. Gillian Anderson turned down the role of the principal, Valerie Drake.
Oh, that's a shame. She would have been awesome.
The
Maybe a bit too young then, maybe?
Yeah.
98. I mean, yeah, she would have been about there. No, I think she would have been fine.
Yeah. The role of Delilah was originally written for Charisma Carpenter. She turned it down because she felt the role was too similar to a character Cordelia on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Sarah Michelle Gellar, the title star of Buffy, also turned down the role in The Faculty.
That's a shame. I totally see Sarah Michelle Gellar in particular in this film, 100%.
During a retrospective interview for Halloween H2O, Josh Hartnett acknowledged his controversial hairstyle that can be seen in that film and The Faculty. Both productions hated it, but Hartnett intentionally kept cutting his own hair and messing it up to look more like an authentic teen. These antics led to fights with producers and the director of H2O, who wanted him fired. Ultimately, that did not occur, and Hartnett finished both films. What's interesting is he wanted it to look more authentic teen. I don't know if he ever knew, but teens were worried about their hair, going to proper barbers and getting it cut properly.
And this was before 98. This was before the whole bedhead thing, when you was like, you would intentionally try and make your hair look messy, but in like a stylish way. So I don't even think it had that. I just get the impression that Josh Hartnett was just hard fucking work. That's what it sounds like. He was just like, I'm going to be a dick about this. And I actually thought that I mentioned earlier that, Tommy Hilfiger had like I'm not sure if you call it a sponsorship deal, like a collaboration with this movie. A lot of the stuff they're wearing is Tommy Hilfiger, but it went both ways. There are some really famous, and we'll share them online when we post this film, of they had the whole cast advertising Tommy Hilfiger gear with just like these posters and stuff, which would go in magazines and stuff. And you see them all together and they're all doing these poses, like they're looking through cameras. And the only person who doesn't seem to be all that involved is Josh Hartnett, who's standing off on his own, doing his own little pose like a dick. And then some of the other posters, all the other cast members are there, except for Josh Hartnett, which makes me think, and there's one picture in particular where he's just off on his own. I get the impression that maybe they just weren't that first time. Now, that might not be based on anything, but I hear the haircut thing, I see the Hilfiger promotional stuff, and I'm like, maybe Josh Hartnett was just a bit of a bellend when he was like 20 years old. Completely reasonable. I mean, most people were when they were that age, but I don't know. So, just a theory anyway.
Jessica Alba auditioned for the role of Delilah.
Oh,
could have seen that. Yeah,
I know. Absolutely. And yeah. I'm a Jessica Alba man, as you know, after doing what was it called? Idle Hands.
Idle Hands, yeah.
Oh, it's just fucking smoke. I was
around at the same time as well. So
yeah, around like
99's Jessica Alba, yeah.
Yeah, like around between the ages of like 16 and like 21, I was just absolutely in love with Jessica Alba. But then most guys were, so yeah, totally understandable.
So this isn't even a fact. This is somebody finally figured it out later on and just typing it in. And Clea Duvall is a lesbian actress playing a heterosexual girl pretending to be a lesbian to scare people off. That's the fact. Like, all right, get over yourself.
A little bit, yeah, yeah. I mean, it does sound quite fun when you write it down like that.
Yeah, but she wasn't. Well, this is a
It is a fact in so much that it's true, but it doesn't belong in the fact section. I agree with you.
yeah, and she came out in 2016. So was she a lesbian then?
I don't know. Well, that's the thing. You don't
Yeah,
know, and you have to remember it wasn't as easy to come out as gay back then as it is now. It just wasn't. And I'm not saying it's easy now, but it's easier now. You get the impression it's much easier, much more accepted now than it was in the late 90s. That's for sure.
yeah. What else have we got here? Mary Beth always introduces herself by her full name. Yeah, I didn't even pick that down, but I was doing my head in. Mary
Yeah.
Beth Hutchison.
And you did mention like she's probably my least favorite character in the film, and maybe that's the whole point. But she's the only one who doesn't really land for me.
In the original script, at around 25 minutes, the line "It must really blow being you" was said by Stan, not Casey.
Makes much more sense being from Casey. 100%.
Yeah.
They made the right choice. Don't get me wrong, it clearly sucks being Casey as well. But, he just had his balls squashed. So not a fantastic day. But it makes it much more interesting, the fact that it's Casey saying it to Stan.
And last one then, Daniel von Bargen, who was the drunk teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and Sean
Great name.
Hattersley both previously appeared in The Postman in 97.
Oh, what a fucking terrible film. So at least they had this. I mean, because that's the thing. Everyone talks about Waterworld is this big like nadir of Kevin Costner's career. It's not. Waterworld is not his nadir. That film has actually made money in the long run. The Postman. Yeah. I'm going to go on record and say The Postman did not make money and never has made money. That film is ass. Hug to Future.
Sorry, I'm sorry, mate. I'm not going to end it on that one. I want to end it on something a bit better. So when we didn't actually pick this up, when they're discussing the aliens, they mention a master, but the first person to refer to a queen and continually refer to her as her is Mary Beth, foreshadowing herself as the queen alien.
Awesome. And they also reference, is it the movie The Puppet Master? Because they keep saying about it.
Puppet Masters.
Puppet Masters, I do apologize. Yeah. Hug to the Future. This is where we ask a question: remake, sequel, Let It Die, or Leave Well Alone. Well, supposedly there is a remake on the cards with Robert Rodriguez producing, and honestly, I'm totally on board with that. Like, I'm not I'm not in love with this film. I really like this film. It's very much a movie of its time, but taking that concept and moving it today, sure. The only thing is, it really works. They did it recently with The Craft. Remember, The Craft came out in 96, and they did like The Craft Beginnings, where it was like one of those legacy sequels, and it just tanked. It was supposed to be completely ass. So, the fact that Rodriguez is involved gives me a little bit of hope. And I'm not at all against the idea of them remaking it now. I just have the usual fears when it comes to these things. But sure, yeah, let's go for it. Go for the remake.
Yeah, this is a film that I think can be remade. I mean, it's one that's done before anyway, isn't it? It's not like it's not an original idea. You've got something they did it with. Oh, what was it? I said it before, disturbing behavior, but that you had they were brainwashing instead of stuff like this. So yeah, it's not an original idea, so it's something that can be done, and it's probably been done already. But in regards,
but they've proved that they can do it. Like they've done it with. And there's probably the reason they're thinking about doing this is because of the recent success of the Scream sequels. And the idea of having this as a legacy sequel, I'd like to see some of the cast come back. I'm totally on board with that.
No.
I'm not against it. But do I think it'll happen? Probably not. I think the most important thing is, again, casting the kids and the teachers correctly. You've got to have. I'm not like beholden to the idea that you've got to bring back the original cast. I'm not. What I wouldn't actually mind is the idea that it exists in the same universe, but you don't bring any of the original characters back because they have nothing to do with it. Bring back the aliens. They're not going to be looking for Josh Hartnett again. They're not going to give a fuck. So it could exist in the same universe, but completely different kids, different teachers. That's what I'd like to see.
For me, not a legacy sequel, not same universe or anything like that. For me, just if you're going to do it, just make it a straight.
Totally fair enough. Oh yeah. And I'm not like attached to that at all. I'm just like, give a shit. Yeah. I just don't want to see it be like, oh, we're going to force all of the original cast.
Yeah, I mean, you get like Josh Hartnett or Elijah Wood as now a principal. You get bloody Mary Beth's, I don't know, mate from that planet coming back for revenge. That's basically where they're going to go with it if they do it. And I don't want that. Just make it a full-on remake.
Yeah, I think you're right. No, you've convinced me. Full remake. I'm on board. So make a change is where we ask a question. If you could only make one change in this movie, what would it be? For me, it's easy. Commit to physical effects. I know it was the era, but like it's like early 3D gaming. Everyone was doing it. It's like you can't make a 2D game because 3D is the new technology. And of course, you go back and play a lot of those games, they play like ass. And it's similar with the CG. The budget wasn't there. It didn't have that kind of, subtle hand behind the scenes where the best examples, when you think of like Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, using that combination, they went too heavy on the CG. It's aged it. It doesn't ruin the film, but it doesn't look fantastic. And as I said, when they do go practical in this film, it looks really cool. I would just love to see this movie redone, totally practical effects. And that's one of the things, not just if I was going to change one thing about this film, but if you were going to do a remake, go practical, 100%.
Yeah. For me, the joke answer is going to be make Zeke hold both pens the right way.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But
Or get a barber to cut his hair, perhaps.
or make sure the Floby has power. But the real answer is change the way Stan gets turned. Going out to see.
You really hate that, don't you?
It fucking wound me right up, dude. Going out to see if them killing the principal has worked, that's fine. But maybe don't have the entire football team again staring. I know they want to make it.
I love it because your hatred of that one silly little scene has almost dictated this entire podcast, because it meant that we started at the end of the film and we've had to kind of go back to the beginning, then the middle. It's been one of those like fun but messy podcasts, and it's fundamentally because of your hatred of that scene and just how dumb Stan was. But I 100% agree with you. It's a really silly thing to do, and it doesn't make
no way
sense.
they did it. So you could see the cool. Well, what they thought in '98 was the cool look of the X-ray thing with Coach's face and stuff, and that's fine. Maybe just have it being Coach stood out there packing up, not the entire football team are staring up in the rain. Stan, they're not fucking normal, mate. Don't go near them. And that's really wound me up. So
yeah, you didn't need that. You could have just looked out the window and just let them see them in the distance. Go, oh, this clearly hasn't worked. But of course, then you don't get. It makes sense because you've got the whole thing with Stokely where she's kissed him for the first time, and then he's turned into an alien. So obviously it devastates her. Although she's turned into an alien almost immediately, and in a way that isn't explained in the movie, like 2 seconds later. So considering most of them survive, as in they don't get taken over by the aliens. Like for the whole film, they all just start dropping like flies towards the end.
I mean, it kind of gets explained, doesn't it? Because she gets dragged in the pool.
Oh, yeah, I guess it was that.
Yeah.
But, sorry, I just totally forgot. Maybe I was just looking at the terrible CG monster in that sequence. In terms of video games, there wasn't a Faxer video game, unsurprisingly. If I was going to make one today, the two options really for me were like you could go with like Atlas and the Persona team. So it feels like an obvious template given the emphasis on marrying up school life with like sci-fi shit. The idea that, by day you've still got to go to school because your parents are worried about you jerking off and doing drugs, but at the same time dodge all the aliens. And the idea that you've got to keep up appearances and not make yourself too suspicious, you could kind of play that into the game. Either that, or there was actually, and we've mentioned the references throughout this film, Computer Artworks made a video game for The Thing in 2002. Now it wasn't a great video game, but it did have an awesome system where any of the characters could theoretically be infected at any time, and you had to figure it out. And if you had that kind of game where it's not kind of driven by a specific narrative, it's just based on your actions, certain characters can get infected, but you don't know who at any given time. I think that'd be kind of cool. So I'll go with one of those two, but I'll probably go with Persona because I fucking love those games.
I like the idea of The Thing one. I forgot about that one. That was the like technically sequel thing, wasn't it? Where the
the original Xbox and PS2.
Yeah, but for me, it feels like a Supermassive Games game. Like Until Dawn kind of style, where any choice you make could lead to you finding out who is the queen, who's not the queen. You get in turned or not turned. So I think it's kind of that. It's
that'd
more
be a great shout, because you could even have like really short versions where you fuck up and the game just ends after 10 minutes because you've been infected by the aliens and you're fucked, basically.
Yeah, and the thing with Supermassive Games, especially Until Dawn, you're controlling the whole group. At certain points of it, you're controlling a group, and then there's their decisions. And then because it's multiplayer as well, you can play like couch mode, as they call it, where each person, if there's two of you, go right randomly, just right. So I play this guy and this guy, you play that guy and that guy, and then you doing it. So I think that's probably that would be where I go.
I think that's the correct answer. I think you win this week. I think Supermassive Games is a great shot for this, especially, as you said, with the whole thing about certain characters potentially being infected, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, great shot. In terms of ratings and recommendations, I went back and forth on this a little bit because I didn't want to give a half mark. So I am going to go both for and just about. As I said earlier, not all movies from like the late 90s have aged that well. Whereas the best ones, and I think this is an example alongside the likes of Scream, because you've got a solid director behind the screen, behind the scenes, behind the camera, whatever you want to say, it doesn't feel like a 98 film. It feels like a modern film that was, that is set in 1998. And those are often the easiest to recommend. Yeah, like I said, there are some bits people have like maybe raise an eyebrow to some of the, as we mentioned, the lesbian stuff and all these other things. But again, it's 1998. It's clearly 1998. Just get on board with it. That's what it used to be like. So I'm going to go with 4 and yes, because despite its faults, I think it's a really fun film. The cast is fantastic. As I mentioned earlier, I think it balances horror with the whole high school thing really, really well. And yeah, I just think it's fun. Great soundtrack too. I mean, we mentioned a few of the songs, but the score is an absolute belter, right? Until, before you jump in, throughout this film, so you have, I've got some of them written down here. You have The Offspring, David Bowie, you have Alice Cooper, you even have Sheryl Crow at one point. And then suddenly in the end credits, you have Oasis. What the fuck was up with that Oasis song in the end credit? It felt so out. Every other song in this felt both, time and place perfect. It's just like, oh yeah, this is 1998. This is an American high school. Some of the songs, you're like, well, why is it Alice Cooper? It's like School's Out and stuff. You're like, I get why it's in it. And then all of a sudden, for the end credits, it's almost like, well, Robert Rodriguez just likes Oasis. It's fucking weird as shit. But anyway, sorry. Moving on.
I agree with you for the most part in regards to would I recommend? Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a film of the 90s. It stays in the 90s, but it's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it. It's a fun ride. You can see teenagers actually play teenagers, so I'm with all of that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. Now, I'm not as what's the word? I don't want to say painful. I'm not afraid to give a half mark as you are. So it's 3.5. It was always going to be 3.5.
Honestly, if I was willing to give that half mark, I think it would be a 3.5. But a very, as we said on this podcast so many times, and it's the same with threes. This is like, if you would say, I thought you were going to say 3, I wouldn't have argued, because I was like, it's just a really fun 3-4-star movie. Dare I say a 3.5-star movie? I think you're actually bang. Like this is the most 3.5-star movie I think we've ever done. So I was really hard pressed. I was like, all right, if I have to pick away, I'm like, well, I like so much of it, I'm going to lean towards 4. But the reality is, it's 3.5 as fuck.
If Stan didn't make that fucking choice, it might be a 4, but it was 3.5. It's gonna, and like you say, yeah, it's bang average in regards to that. It's such a good,
but in a
fun
good
ride. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to be upset that I don't watch it again.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'd like to watch it again. So, and yeah, I think people should watch it. I think they should have a good time with it. It's the better one of those things. Like I said, Disturbing Behavior would be fun to go and watch, but you've kind of just said, oh, I don't know if I want to watch that one. So I don't. It depends how pissed off I am at you when I watch another James Cameron film.
Fair enough. So we're both basically on the same page. You both recommend it. We're in the kind of somewhere between 3 and 4, so 3.5. I think that's fair enough. So that's been the faculty. So it's my choice next week, and I couldn't make my mind up. So I'm going to put this to you. What would you prefer, the movie from 1993 or the movie from 1996?
Oh shit! I'll go being 10 years old. I'll go 93.
93. Okay, so the year is 1993. The director is Renny Harlin.
Oh, fuck. 93 Renny Harlin.
Mm-hmm.
Die Hard 2.
Nope. That was 80. Was that 1990? I think that might be 1990 on
yeah, because 88 or 89 was Die
Hard. Yeah, Die Hard was 88.
93 Renny Harlin. It wasn't Renny Harlin that did Ronin, was it? It's too late for Ronin. Too early for Ronin.
Nope.
No, go on.
I'm not going to say any. I feel like any of the cast might give it away, so I'm just going to say Mountain.
Fuck. Cliffhanger.
Yeah, Cliffhanger. The reason is I've been tiptoeing around Cliffhanger for a while. I've not seen Cliffhanger for a long time, and currently on Amazon Prime, it's not just Cliffhangers on there, but Cliffhanger Remastered. And I'm
Okay.
like, I totally want to rewatch Cliffhanger. To be honest, like the thing I always remember from Cliffhanger is, like so many people, is the opening. I think it gave a lot of people a fear of climbing. I still get like there's something about climbing, especially like free climbing, stuff like that. If I watch people do it, it just gives me the fucking willies. And that opening sequence, man, I just remember being absolutely horrifying and a ballsy move to open a film with something that horrible. But yeah, it's one that I've not seen for a long time. I always remember the score being like really dramatic and majestic. It was at the tail end of kind of like peak Sylvester Stallone before he went into that drought. So this is still around, when I think of this film, it kind of sits alongside Demolition Man, when it was just before things started to tail off for both him and Schwarzenegger, and they started going a different way with action heroes. But yeah, I always had a bit of a soft spot for Cliffhanger, but it's one I would say I haven't seen for the best part of 20 years. So
It's been a long time since I've seen it. I can't wait to just spend a lot of time on Michael Rooker's decision to take his fucking missus climbing that dangerously.
Terrible decision. And then to blame Sylvester Stallone. And Sylvester Stallone to blame himself. Give me a fucking break. She's clearly not comfortable climbing, and they're climbing up the most dangerous looking mountain. Where they pick them up, it's ridiculous. That's the one thing I remember. It's absurd. It's not like on the side of a mountain. It's like an outcrop. They got nowhere else to go, and they have to. Yeah, you was like, dude, you were trying to kill your girlfriend. The only person to blame is him, as far as I'm concerned.
I remember as well.
That next week.
Robin Williams' missus from Hook, Moira, was in this as John Lithgow's missus, if I remember right.
Oh shit, I totally forgot. And that's another reason that this film is good. Let's be clear. It's
because of Moira.
No, I was going to say because of John Lithgow. Like John Lithgow playing a bad guy, he doesn't do it enough, but when he does, he's just an awesome actor, and he's a great bad guy. But yeah, anyway, that's been the Faculty. Next week we do a 1993's Cliffhanger. Anything else to add before we wrap this up?
No, we've gone on a little bit, so I'll let you I'll let you end it peacefully today.
Fair enough. And plus, my wife's sitting in the other room going like, I just want to eat dinner. I want him to stop talking about fucking movies. Okay, I've been Liam. He's been Rob. You've been listening to Hey Guys Podcast. Cheers, guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now. Sorry, I've got to say it. I've just had the same thing. I've just had the look on my face going, fucking wrap it up. So
I know, right? Jesus Christ. They can listen in. They know we're talking absolute wank at this point. They're like, dude, no one's listening. Just fucking stop talking. Like, all right. So anyway, end of the podcast.
Right. Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Hey, you guys!